Through the fires of a culture that praises the unrighteous and celebrates mediocrity. It's time for a new age, when power to tell stories of the future will be in the hands of the people. Rise up! Become the culture! Hail the Iron Age! Yes! All right, thank you for joining us. And today I am joined by the legendary Battsauce. Only partway that there he is. So we've talking about this for a while, basically ever since we talked about Brandon Sanderson's Secret Project number 3, Yumi and the Nightmare Painter. You can find that on the Iron Seas special, I believe it was special number 3, and that was done with Justin, Evely Music, as well as his lovely wife, Grace. And that was a fun conversation, too. It was nice to get kind of a more feminine perspective, especially in that kind of a story.
Yeah, they got
that which
for,
Justin
Justice
obviously
Feminine.
provided. Yeah.
So-
You're on the same page there. Oh, that's great, man. So this would be the third of the 4 that you've read at this point, right? Or did you read
Yes.
the handbook yet?
No, I immediately read The Sunlit Man after I read this, and then I realized that Dawn Shard was a really necessary novella for the Cosmere, which I didn't think it was. It's kind of why I skipped it, so now I'm on that one.
Well, it's because everybody read the Lift story, like the Lift one, whichever one that was. Edge Dancer, that's what it was called, the novella. Mm-hmm. And I like the novella. I'm working through it right now. I have not read Dawn Shard. I'm partially aware of what happens inside of that story, but with every other project in the Secret Projects, you could probably read it with minimal Cosmere knowledge and be okay, or none almost, especially with maybe Tress. With Sunlit Man, that's not the case. Sunlit Man, you really need to know what's going on.
You need to go in with at least 2 or 3 books.
It would really help. But today, we aren't talking about any of those other secret projects. We are talking about Tress of the Emerald Sea. And whether we liked it, what we did like, what we didn't like, whether we think he accomplished his overall mission with this book. Or at least whether we think this was a successful experiment. And so, just going in, did you have any expectations built up before you read the book?
Oh, of course. Any Brandon Sanderson book, there's high expectations because I don't think he's had a miss, and his worst book is still an amazing book. So it's like,
it's like his worst book is better than most other people's best books, which is unfortunate for a lot of other people.
Expectations are kind of high. So, Yeah, but I did go into it with like a little bit of a heads up with some downsides of it because somebody else we know had read it and said that they thought it was the worst that they read of the Cosmere. And I think I agree.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. This book, I like it for very personal, specific reasons, but I acknowledge I can totally see why. Like there's a lot of reasons why someone could go into this as even a die-hard Cosmere fan and not be a huge fan of this particular book. So I suppose like let's start with a big positive. What was a big positive or a good takeaway from this book?
The world building. I think it's my favorite world in the
That's pretty
Cosmere.
impressive considering the Cosmere as well.
And I mean that's the one of the biggest things with Brandon's worlds is they're so different, weird, and interesting. So it's a super high bar to be the best of the Cosmere, and well, for my opinion, and I think it's my favorite. I don't know. Well, I don't know best. I think just favorite. I like if that makes sense.
It's colorful and it's filled with danger. It's interesting.
Yeah.
Life has to be like it really feels like a very different world. I hate when so many fantasy worlds just feel like, and hey, it's not Earth again. What do you know?
Yeah. Like I think Sunlit Man actually would be my technical best world, but not my favorite.
It's the one if they were real, it's the one I'd probably least want to visit.
Yeah, no, that's what I mean. Like best for like story writing, different and like sense making. Like I don't know, just different aspects.
It's like there's a constant threat. There's always a ticking clock. Like you get that a little bit in Stormlight with the high storms and how deadly they can be in the Everstorms as well. Spoilers for that. But in Sunlit Man, it's even more like oppressive. But that's not what it's like in Tress. In Tress,
No.
the threat is just all around you at all times. And so, in some way, like just like humanity throughout the entire Cosmere, they don't just leave; they just figure out a way to deal with it. They figured out silver kills the spores, and they've created methods. Yeah.
Quick summary of the plot and the world building, I guess.
Yeah, no, that's completely fine. This is the Secret Project #1, Tress of the Emerald Sea. It starts off with Tress. She is a lonely girl on a small island that is ruled by a not like corrupt, but not inexcusably corrupt kind of bureaucrat and with a his own selfish motives. And she is in love with his son. He is above her station. And despite all of that, despite all of the obstacles in their way, they promise themselves to each other. And when he leaves and doesn't come back, there's a rumor that he was taken by the witch in the Moonlit Sea, or the what do they call it?
The Midnight Sea.
Midnight Sea. That's right. And so, in a kind of role reversal in a typical fairy tale, which this book does feel like, Tress must then venture out and try to negotiate and barter for the life of her betrothed back. And that is the basic plot of this book. It has a lot of wild turns and does end quite in a rather interesting way. But I overall really enjoyed this book. It was very whimsical and it was but I have my own reasons for loving it. But you're not as warm on it. So maybe talk about a positive and then you can go into a negative after that.
Well, I already said
again the world building. So is that your only positive? I mean, the world building is interesting. It talks about the spores and all the aether. It kind of relates to the aethers as well.
Yeah, I don't think it's like everything in there like is a negative, obviously, for me. I don't think overall this is a bad book. It's just I don't think there was anything else that particularly stood out as like a positive. Maybe neutral, if that makes sense.
Like it didn't bother you, but it wasn't stand out like fantastic kind of thing.
Right. Like aspects of the story at least. I'll go to negatives a little bit later. But yeah, I'll mention like with the world building, so we got like 12 C's.
It's been like 2 months since I read it, so it's a little fuzzy,
so there's like
sure I could even
10 or 12 different type of C's in this world, and for each C there is a moon, and the moon, stays over their sea, and periodically it'll like drop in these spores into the ocean, because the ocean's not a typical ocean made of water. And this is like the coolest part. It's made of these like beads that are aphers. What do they call it again? I don't remember.
Each of the spores represents the aethers. And the aethers are a type of natural magic that is not necessarily from the shards, which is kind of it's a Cosmere spoiler thing, but truth is we don't really know that much about them. They're still kind of a mystery. We don't really know how they tie in or why they act differently, or they have their kind of own sets of rules and religious beliefs and things of that nature. But yeah, no, it looks like there may be 10 different seeds. Nope, there are 12. Nope, it's 12. You're right. Sorry.
Oh, right. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah, so and each of them have a different color, and each of them do something very differently when water touches the spore. I'll call them spores from now on. So it's like these black beads that creates this ocean, and it kind of moves, I guess, like vibrate, like how vibrations with the sand would work.
It's a lot of people's least favorite word in fantasy, which is undulate. It undulates constantly.
Yeah. And sometimes there will be a period where it stops, and therefore you can actually walk on it. That's sporadic; doesn't always happen, but typically they're sailing these spores like it is water, but it's not. Now all of these spores, and there are different colors depending on what sea you're in. So of course, Tress is from the verdant sea, which is green, like the emerald, and
Tress of the Emerald Sea. It's all there.
When water touches it, vines sprout out, right? And
violently and aggressively.
Well, the thing is, like, what if it touches your eye? Like you fall in or sweat, some sweat drips on it. Spore releases, like I said, if it's your eye, it's going to just pop into your brain. You're dead. So all these spores are super dangerous.
God forbid one lands on your tongue. You're done for.
Yep.
It's a bad day for everyone. I appreciated how the sailing was different, but also still reminiscent of real world, like an ordinary kind of sailing adventure. Because like they had encountered similar problems, but in a much different form, which I really appreciated.
Right.
It's still a dangerous occupation. In some ways, much more dangerous in many ways.
Yeah. The big detail with the C2 is that silver, in particular, just completely neutralizes the spore, kills it basically, and also will take down whatever it sprouts out. Because like if you're in the Zephyr Sea,
is that the blue one?
Something like that. Sapphire Sea, maybe. It like explodes when it touches water.
Yeah, it's treated like black powder, essentially, when it touches water.
Yeah. So they do a lot of different science with these spores as well. So that's another interesting aspect.
What's interesting is how the colors and the metals affect the spores as well, because different metals affect the spores differently as well. Like what?
I just remember silver.
Silver is a non-allomatic metal, if you're familiar with Mistborn, and so it kills spores in this. And Brandon has talked about this a little bit, how rules, like there's kind of underlying rules in the Cosmere. Like metals will not work like an Allomancer would on this planet, but they do have a somewhat correlating effect. And just like colors do from Worldbreaker and all of that, and Cell and all of that. And so that's why the colors are kind of important.
Yeah.
And then it mixes with the Aethers, and we have no idea what the hell is going on.
Right. So like I said, that's a super interesting world. I love the idea of a sea that's not filled with water, but instead super dangerous material. And
very dangerous for an entirely different reason.
Yeah. Like just changes the world in such a strange way, and the technology, which is typical for Brandon Sanderson.
Yeah, and he always likes to take like this kind of seemingly basic magic idea. 12 spores, they all react differently to water. And it's like, well, what if we did this with this? What if we made a like a fuse for it that so it wouldn't activate right away, or there was a secondary effect. Stuff like that. It makes it very interesting to read about, or even the reason why the Crimson Sea was so dangerous. It's
Yeah.
not because the spores are more dangerous, it's because it just rains more there.
The
And
weather
that's it.
patterns.
Yeah.
The weather patterns, because apparently people, like, the weather works, like, goes the same direction in all these different seas except for the Crimson, which is why it's so dangerous.
It's not predictable.
Because, yeah, it's not predictable. So you have no idea if you're going to get caught in a rainstorm. And if you do, you're essentially dead, right? Except, Tress figures it out very conveniently, which is part of my negatives on it. Figuring out how to build all different type of technology, like way better.
I think
than
the
all
main
these other
problem is
people.
going to be that your negatives are going to be excused by my positives. At least for myself individually, I liked that this story felt more like it felt like a combination of like fairy tales I was read growing up as a young child, like by my mother and grandmother and my dad, like from all cultures all over the world, even the Middle East. And then it also kind of felt like Princess Bride a little bit in tone. It was a little sillier, a little more whimsical. It was still dangerous.
It's all fixable, and with keeping the same whimsiness, right. It's all. All she had to do is not be the one that like figured it out.
Solved
with, like,
every problem
with just the previous guys, like bare minimal notes. Like he had some notes, some ideas, and she just figured out how to invent all this like. Groundbreaking technology.
I agree, but I also appreciate that it wasn't just like, hey, she figured it out. It was like you see her working at it and trying to understand and going through her experiments a little bit. And I do appreciate that you like it's not like Rey from Star Wars.
Yeah, I appreciate she's a little bit less of a Mary Sue than Rey.
That's not a high bar.
I know.
It's very true.
But yeah, I mean, you can't help that. You're getting very Mary Sue vibes. I mean, she's not getting through this without any help, right? But she is solving all the major issues almost entirely. Actually, either on her own or with the resistance of her allies.
And sometimes based off of a very, very obscure clue.
Right.
Let's talk about the elephant in the room with this story and the way that in specific, the way that it is told. It is told to us very directly by Wit. And sometimes he will just like step out of the storytelling to go off on his own little tangent. And that's why the language and the prose is different in this book. Do you like that? Did you think it worked? Did you find it interesting? That's the main crux of the question for that, because I did enjoy it. I liked hearing a story told in a more unique way, and was a kind of a slightly more flowery art writing style for him.
I enjoyed it better when it was in Yumi and the Nightmare Painter.
It is this one. It was toned down a little bit in Yumi. For sure.
Yeah, exactly. And Wit's not toned down in this one. And I'm very much like a love-hate Wit kind of guy. It's just like sometimes I just think it's the character's not being as witty as they think he is, or the story's trying to make you think he is. Which translates to Sanderson
not being quite as witty as he thinks he is, kind of thing.
Right, and it's not so much. It's mostly just I don't know. Sometimes the character, because Brandon Sanderson is so good, it's just like some of those lines are like hilarious and awesome. But sometimes I'm like, it doesn't land. But I'd rather have that character taking the swings and missing some than
not taking a swing at all.
Yeah, it's just an entire book of him narrating,
especially a story that's quite as it's more of this is a romantic adventure story. This is like. Yeah. Think like, what was it? Romancing the Stone. Think Princess Bride. That's the vibe of this story for the most part. There is danger, but it's all underlaid by this like fairy tale-esque kind of feel that things are going to be okay.
Yeah.
What's interesting is that I wonder, because magic in the Cosmere, or investiture, when it goes too far away from its source, like where basically tied to a location in some form or fashion. There are ways around it, but there are limitations on how far you can take something. I wonder if something like these spores could just be like put in a box and taken with you somewhere. It's
Yeah, that was a big aspect of it, but then that was why I was wondering. So I get before we should get into that, we should mention like more of the story details. So it's like some point she finds a rat, um,
and it's her talking animal companion.
yeah, talking, and it's explained, and there's like a few really weird things on this ship that aren't
It don't make sense.
Yeah, it don't make sense. There's like a zombie character. I didn't really like that character. Either way, the rat is her friend, good friend.
Hawk
she helped. Yeah,
Hawk
she helped save him, and he tries everything to keep her away from the Midnight Sea.
And he tries to do it secretly, which is kind of a give in some ways. Did you anticipate? Did you realize who he was before the end of the story, or
I figured it out before she got to the Midnight Sea, like right before. But the only reason I feel like it took me so long is because I don't remember what you said, but like you said something about the sorceress, and it made me focus in on the sorceress, and I kept thinking that the sorceress was going to be a character we met before in
like a different Cosmere,
right? And it was just a person that's very old and familiar with the Cosmere, very powerful. So it was like a cool reveal, being that she was an Elantrian, an outworlder, as they say.
And she doesn't just use like the door, like an Elantrian would. She uses the stamps, which is from
stamps.
Oh, it's a different style of magic altogether from that same world. The Emperor's Soul. Yeah.
Oh, I still haven't read the Emperor's Soul.
I haven't read it either. But
there was like a dancing thing, which I think that was like an outworlder there.
No, he was from there. There's just different ways to access it, depending.
That book had a lot of different type of magic that they didn't go too far into detail.
They're like, we're gonna drop this and then not explain it at all.
So, and that was just weird. So apparently, it like, funny enough, Wit is a character that's on the boat with them the entire time. And it's like,
it might have been dumb for some people. I thought him being just retarded and on the boat.
I liked
really
it.
Funny. I laughed every time.
He's cursed by the sorceress. That's all you know. Like to like lose his wit. He's just dumb. He's like you said, retarded the whole time, and they have to figure
the
out.
Knowledge is there, but he can't use like everything's still there. He just can't really access it.
He can't speak right, and so it's just like they had to figure out what the terms were to get the curse removed, and it turns out that was to get him to the Midnight Sea, to get him to the sorceress. But like again, there's little tweaks in that curse to make him not be able to say where the sorceress is and all this other stuff.
And their ways around it were things you could figure out if you thought long and hard enough about it, or if someone came up with the idea. It was a believable way. It's like, you can't talk about this. Well, if you can't talk about it and someone asks you, then you won't say anything. That's kind of how that works. It's kind of a clever way to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then okay. Well, let's talk.
What was the biggest drawback for you
of the book entirely?
Yeah, of the book entirely. Was it Tress and her kind of
being
a touch
character
of Mary Sue?
Yeah, it was a touch of Mary Sue. It was just annoying because I was gonna say, we'll talk the like antagonist of this story, and then I think we should move to the Crimson Sea. So the antagonist is kind of so she's on one boat like that she snuck onto. And then it gets taken over by...
Are we talking about the end and the sorceress, so to say? Or are we talking about the captain on the boat?
The captain. The captain.
Yeah.
So the captain, and that wasn't a strong character. So basically their boat gets taken over, and like while the ocean is still for like a second, she runs over very bravely and she gets onto the boat, and then they give her like the most important job on the boat, and like just because she lied, and I'm just not believing it. I'm like, yo,
We found this drifter out at sea.
There's-
Here, can you press the button that launches the nuclear warhead? I'm just curious.
dude, there's only one person that specializes in like spore technique, like spore removal and spore application. Because some of the spores they'll use to like patch up the boat when it gets
the
like,
crystal
shot.
one, whichever.
Right.
Was that Zephyr or I can't remember, but
I
yeah.
don't remember.
No,
but,
no, Zephyr was the explosion one, but anyway.
explosion, right? Yeah. So I think whatever. But like, I'm like, yo, you should just like having a doctor on a boat, right? That's a super like even so like. The world isn't built for doctors, right? Like that's like a super specific like specialty that takes years and years of training, right? You can't just have anyone do it, especially because doing it will can easily kill patients. But on boats, like they're gonna assign people to be like, hey, like follow, like learn from this guy what you can do. And we saw the Master Commander. He's like, oh, I seen him do, yeah, learn his job, and. Yeah, apparently there's none of that. They're all just like, yeah, I don't want to learn anything about that. And it's just when the entire ocean is filled with these spores, I feel like there'd be more of people specializing in it than you would have like doctors in real life on a boat. And it's just like these pirates in general came off like pussies. Like I don't know. It's
like they were not really like they were the most half-hearted pirates I've ever read about, possibly.
And that was so annoying.
Like the most reluctant. Maybe that's the word. Yeah. Reluctant.
Yeah, I mean because they were forced into being pirates by the ship's captain, but still, like even
it was partially excusable because like they couldn't really kill the captain.
No, I get fearing the captain because she had some random power curse thing going on from the moon,
from the moons themselves. Yeah, so,
I didn't like
that's
that.
not really I like the mystery of it, but it begs some questions in the Cosmere itself that I don't really have answers for.
Yeah, she can't be really killed because like her body will sprout vines that will protect her.
Well, she can't be killed in the moment, but she's eventually going to die.
Well, the vines are actively draining her of water.
And
but they will protect her.
I assume it's also draining her like life force, like her breath, her soul, whatever.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah, her life essence at some point.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just like she's not a good enough vessel for it. Like maybe if someone like Hoyd or someone else in this was given that, it wouldn't be so detrimental.
To me, anyone who's on like a normal real life sea, they're like, why is my camera wigging out so fucking hard today?
I don't know, dude. I'm so sorry.
Those people are like, like almost adrenaline junkies, like pretty much. Like whether they're pirates, military, like civilian, like those people, they live life on the edge, kind of, right? At the sea. And then to have a sea that's so even more particularly dangerous. Like, come on. These guys are going to be, like, dangerous risk takers,
I get, like, I'm going to have to just disagree on that particular point. Because they're not really pirates. It was their first gig. They were reluctant. They didn't really want to be pirates. I can kind of excuse that aspect. I can't excuse Tress just being able to do everything.
Yeah.
The only possible excuse for that is that she was fairly intuitive and curious, and it was also like part of the fairy tale thing. Like the protagonist is able to solve problems like continually.
I expect like crabber, fisherman type of like grit from at a bare minimum, right? Those people, it's anything in the sea in a normal sea is dangerous.
Let me tell you, seamen don't go down. Seamen don't go down easy.
These guys have to be the risk taker type of guys. So that to me was like overall just kind of annoying and like a world building inconsistency. I felt like it just didn't feel true to the world that Sanderson built.
Yeah, in some ways. All right, let's move on. I do have another aspect to talk about. Yeah. I'm just curious to see how wrong you are in truth.
Yeah.
No, That is, I'm going to go through different fairy tale things that happen in this book because there are quite a few, and I'm going to have you basically say yay or nay on each one in regards to how it was done in this book. Um, let's see, the evil sorceress not really being an evil sorceress, yay or nay?
It's so predictable. I don't. It like I'm so middle of the road. I'm like, it's her not being evil. It's a so straight predictable. Yeah, it's straight.
I do like what it implies, which is that with the right knowledge in the Cosmere, a very ordinary person can become basically like a demigod if they go to somewhere else. I mean,
but she's not a normal person, though.
Well, she's not a normal person, but
she's an Elantrian, which is not a normal person.
That's not a normal person, but she still shouldn't be. Like, if it was just a straight Elantrian over here, there's not a lot that she could really do. She just has knowledge, and she has investiture, adherent technology, which is what allowed her to do everything. The dragon, yay or nay?
I don't know.
It's the first time a dragon has been addressed fully in the Cosmere. Yeah.
I don't know. Like, I felt so about that whole situation, about the trade-off, being like, oh, I'll take the... She Mary sued her way through the dragon aspect, and I don't know, it's just like the dragon wasn't particularly scary.
No, see, now I'm going to disagree with you.
Like, it was okay.
I'll say I like that. Like, you know how many dragon stories I read and I was read to growing up? Like, where it's always like a negotiation with the dragon. It's like, you're not going to physically overpower it, obviously. Yeah. It's a dragon. So it's like we have to trick the dragon or maneuver cleverly with language and with tricks. And that's kind of, in a way, it was kind of like that. And I appreciated that fairy tale-esque aspect of this story. And so you're wrong, obviously, as I've proven here.
Look, for the first time ever, we've had dragons introduced into the Cosmere, and
it could have been a bigger thing,
and it was such a not like a thing that I don't know, it just was so uneventful. And I'm like, now I'm curious, are dragons world hoppers?
I assume so. Dragons are supposed to be pretty powerful. They mentioned there's one on Roshar, but I don't know who it is. From what I've gathered, like from what I've gathered, they're highly invested beings, and so they're able. I assume they don't just have to be in dragon form the whole time. That's kind of It's an assumption, but I think it's a safe assumption.
Yeah. So I don't know. I was like let down by the moment. So,
did you like the fairy tale ending? Did you agree there should be a happy ending? Did you like the fact that like true love prevails at the end of the story?
Yeah, I'll say I like that. Yeah, I like that.
I liked it
because I was gonna be like super disappointed when she was just like, "All right, go on your way. Here he is." It's like, no, this is a trick, which I figured, but like it wasn't surprising.
I'll admit, I didn't know what the trick was. I knew it was a trick. I just didn't know what the trick was specifically. I liked the fairy tale, like, true love prevails ending in this book more than in Yumi. In Yumi, like, half of me is I kind of...
in Yumi.
That, you're wrong. No, I'm not talking about the quality of the story overall. I'm just saying the fairy tale ending aspect of the story by itself. I think it's more whimsical, fun, and romantic in this. In Yumi, half of me is kind of thinking that it should have been tragic, like bittersweet. Like, we destroyed the monsters and we freed the world from this malevolent force, and things are going to be better in the future. But it cost me the love of my life. If the story in Yumi went that direction, I would have been okay with it, and I might have even preferred it. In this story, I would have been very disappointed if it didn't end happily.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. It's just again, it's just. Yeah,
you're like Royce in the debate you guys had.
But it's one of these things where it's a problem of accumulation of issues I'm already having in the story already, where it's like Mary Sue. Like, and my biggest the biggest thing is like she invents this whole new like technology that last minute that saves them from the issue of the Crimson Sea, because of course they go in there and like rainfall hits them, like we said. It's like, it's always a
It's
gamble to go in there.
unpredictable. That's why
And
it's
she
so
figures
dangerous.
out a way with technology to that she invented that burst a verdant tree of vines that lifts them to the air, makes them safe from the spores, the crimson that are just spiky material.
Yeah.
So they're safe from that. Okay, all right. Of course she invented it. And my biggest, not my biggest, the other issue is the Midnight Sea.
Frankly,
I never liked the concept of the Midnight Sea, even when they first told you about it, where it's
I like that it's different. I do feel like it was a little too easily overcome.
Well, they didn't really do anything with it. It's just because they kind of talked their way through that issue.
The Crimson Sea should not have felt more dangerous than the Midnight Sea.
Well, the thing is, the Midnight Sea is just not factually not dangerous really at all comparatively to any of the seas. And
it
this
was
is
only dangerous because of the person who was already there. Basically.
No, it's dangerous because of the writing. And this is what I think is an actual mistake in the world building that Brandon Sanderson did, which is why I'm so bothered by it. Which again, I said I like the world so much, but this aspect is terrible. So basically, when you activate a spore, if you do it yourself, it spawns a little creature. Or not even a little creature. It'll spawn a creature, and you can control that creature. It'll just take water from you. It works very weird and different from all the other spores, which was cool. But
I'm okay with variety.
I'm okay with the variety too. It just was just a little
men
bit
or
too,
women. What?
It's just a little bit too different for me. But anyways, they say the Midnight Sea is so dangerous because basically all those creatures that spawn out. Which I'm kind of curious if the sorceress wasn't there. What would happen if the creatures just spawn? Does nobody control them? Do they just wander?
If it was normal investiture, I assume it would take on an identity of its own at some point. But
sure,
based on the perceptions of other people. Yeah. But it's not. It's also related to the Aethers, so they don't act the exact same way.
So the thing is, everything that gets spawned there is controlled by the sorceress, so she can just at any moment just send a sea of monsters at you. Of course, when they get to this moment, she just negotiates with the creature and gets sent over or whatever.
She offered it more McNuggets with sauce than
they don't actually get swarmed. But I'm thinking the entire time, okay, let a swarm of creatures come at you, even massive giant creatures. Oh no, let them come in and attack you, because they're defeated by a touch of silver. So just put a knife, tape it onto a stick, and just poke all the monsters as they come at you, and you're safe. I mean, you can't do that with the vines and stuff because you can only hit so many. But
the problem with the only thing is those monsters could definitely just destroy your boat and you're boned.
Yeah, but that's why I said put it on a stick so you can just stab them from a distance. Everyone's got a stick with a knife on it, and they're just stabbing all the things. I don't think it's going to
stop a giant sea creature.
I thought of this. No, because they know that silver will defeat it. They've mentioned this. They all know this. So again, giant creature comes at you. Oh no, dead. There's 20 of them. All right, get 20 sticks with 20 knives taped.
One hole in the boat. Spores are getting in. We are sinking this boat. This is bad.
But that's a regular issue they have even in combat. They deal with this.
I do wish it was addressed. I agree. But I also think
it needed to be addressed.
I think putting silver on a bunch of sticks would not have stopped monsters. I just don't see it. It would have made it harder for them.
If they touch silver, they're dead.
Not the entire thing. The part of it that touches the silver is dead. That's the key.
Okay, but what happens if they stab it right in the stomach?
I don't know, man. I'm not a
sure
black
they die.
Aether.
No, okay, get out of here. They die. And so, the fact that wasn't addressed or anything like that just says that was a mistake. And I've never seen Brandon Sanderson make such a mistake on that. And that was something I thought of in 2 seconds while I was reading the book. I'm like, why did they just do this? Again,
why didn't they use silver?
Brandon Sanderson would always address something like this and not leave it up to maybe
Wait,
it's
real
because
quick,
of this aspect.
let's address Herman P. Hunter hops in Is this another nerd slap fight? No, we agree on a lot of stuff actually, which is surprising considering how wrong I'm used to Bats being.
And that was a nerd beatdown, by the way.
That was a nerd like chokes like you came in there like Undertaker after Batista was talking crap. That's what that looks like to me. And then at the end throughout he's like, "Oh, I'm wrong. Crap."
Yeah. But yeah, I guess I don't know. Let's go to like overall thoughts. I feel like we covered essentially most of this.
I suppose like we can talk. Yeah. You can go first. Like is it like if this was the Iron Seas, would you give it a float or a sink? It's gonna be tougher for you than it is for me, but yeah.
So this is where I'm at. I think if this I read this, I have no association with Brandon. I don't know about Brandon or something like that. I say it floats. But because it is Brandon's work, and I know his quality, his standard of quality,
his potential at least, yeah.
His potential. Like I think, like I've never seen him write a Mary Sue like this. I've never seen him have a world building mistake like this.
The protagonist of Elantris was a little bit of a Gary Sue or Mary Sue, the male equivalent. Not entirely, but like I think he's at least on the level of Tress. In my opinion, reread it. It's true. I don't mind it, but it's true.
No, I read that early on my Brandon reads, but like, I don't know. He got a lot of help from his people, but like also like big difference is he was older. Like Tress is a little girl, like naive girl. That's how she's set up.
But she does possess kind of a poise and a curious kind of salt of the earth wisdom that seems to serve her well.
I'm sharing my screen, by the way.
Oh, okay. Horn PH. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, so that's the character. I had to look at the images afterwards. This image is cool. She had a thing with teacups.
Yeah, she liked to collect mugs. I thought as far as like weird little quirky things characters do, a lot of characters have them, but they don't usually focus very much in the story on it. I kind of liked that we got to see more of that kind of side of this kind of character.
I want to know if we're going to this world ever again. We might never go to this world again, and I'm kind of like, we didn't even get to see all the fucking seas, dude. What's going on?
He's a seaman. He yearns for the seas. He yearns for the seas.
This guy's set up as a goober. He's the rat in the story.
Oh yeah. Spoilers: the rat, talking rat companion, wasn't just an evil minion of the midnight sorceress who was just a lazy girl, like a lazy girl with a laptop. He was the love interest the entire time.
Yeah. This is basically the first ship she's on gets attacked. They get hit with the verdant spores that just tear down the ship, and she's running across because right now the sea's not in motion. It becomes basically
she's not going too fast because if she sweats, then it's bad day for everyone.
And then I love that. I love that.
Also, the spores could start undulating again at any moment because it has to do with basically thermal activity.
Yeah.
That's a rat.
Which I'm like, a lot of these images, like comparatively to the other two books, they suck. Like this one just looks weird.
It's
like
different.
I don't even know if all of them are drawn. Like this
It's not AI, but it does make me feel AI.
There's something off about it. Like this is like a realistic looking face with a not realistic coat. Like it's weird. Like this.
I like some of the art, but frankly, Yumi had some really, really good art. Like Yumi might have been the best in regards to art, like hands down.
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
The images they had a variety, and they had a visceral, like also Asiatic kind of nature to them that made them very, very appealing.
The zombie character. I wanted to talk about the zombie character. I don't know if that was supposed to be a drag queen or not because the voice that was used. There's a weird character that keeps on like asking for trade of like body parts, and he's like, well, like when you're dead.
Oh, he's not a zombie. He wasn't even human.
He's described as a zombie.
He is not even human.
Well, yeah, I take it that like it's another off-worlder. That's all we can assume.
Yeah, and he's one that knew another one that knew Hoyd. In fact, I think We
It's multiple
may
years,
we
right?
may have seen him before, actually.
Like this looks. I feel like this looks awful. Like the face, like not entirely. Like the pistol looks nice and everything
She
like
looks like a cosplayer posing and not looking natural.
this. Yes.
Exactly
Yes.
right. Yep, that's it.
Yeah, and this is a crossover into the Crimson Sea.
I don't like how the sky changes color too.
Yeah, I don't either. It should like mix or something like that. This straight
This
line
this looks
is
like a
bothersome.
fan image. This doesn't even really look like an official image.
Yeah.
See, this is cool. I'm down for this. This is like
Yeah.
yeah.
So that zombie character. What?
Yes.
Well, he had multiple ears, right? He had like an ear on his arm.
He's basically a gelatinous creature. I don't remember.
Do you have
where
any theories of where he's from?
I think I did when I was reading, but I can't remember now.
All right.
Yeah, I'm sure someone out there knows.
So this is the Midnight Sea because there's creatures in it. Look, boom, long pokey stick. You know, put a knife on this a silver knife, just poking in the head. Done.
And then it wrecks the boat, and then they sink. See, you and I just disagree on this, and that's okay. We're allowed to disagree, and you're allowed to be wrong as often.
It vaporizes. This is interesting. I assume it's a spaceship or something. Because space travel is a thing at the Cosmere.
Oh yeah. That becomes very abundant. Like there's a lot of different technology things coming up. Oh, I like. Oh yeah, Hoyd looks so goofy here because he's been like dressed and like weirded out by everyone, and
she's in an awkward pose. I don't know
yeah, a little bit. Why is there like a symbol on her crotch? Also, it's not. It's just the way it looks like.
Yeah.
And so what's interesting is she obviously has access to some of the power of the door.
Yeah.
The sorceress, but she also has access to stamps and curses as well. I think curses might come from somewhere else, actually. There's a planet that talks about curses, and I'm trying to remember what it is. But yeah, she has access to multiple forms of investiture from her planet, which should not be able to work here as effectively.
Yeah, and so that's the thing. Like it was always explained that the door, which is the power source in Elantris, doesn't work unless you're in Elantris. Like the farther you're away, the weaker it is. But apparently, she has like full access to the power. So that seems to be a hint at more explanation later.
I do know explanation. Do you want me to tell you?
No, I'll be reading Emperor's Soul soon.
It doesn't like that doesn't explain how she has access to the power.
Explain it. Yeah.
A stamp is basically like it's a power you can take with you. A stamp on the soul. How do I explain this? They can take some of the door from the cognitive realm, and if they contain it right and cut it off properly, because it's the body of two shards like melted together, they can take that with them and use that as energy source for virtually any investiture. A stamp rewrites somebody's soul. It changes their past functionally now. And so they become someone entirely different. And it is not always reversible. That's what a stamp is. Or
so that's how Hoyd becomes an Elantrian at the end?
Yes, I believe so. Like at the end of Elantris? Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
No, Hoyd. Wait.
Well, Hoyd, yeah, that's what I meant. But yeah.
Yeah. Okay,
yeah, basically
he gets access to the power once he meets the requirements of his curse, which is to meet the sorceress. He automatically gets the power to the door.
Yeah, and the curse, I don't know how much that has to do with the stamp. Maybe not very much. I've seen one character very directly in a story use a stamp. Basically, I'm not going to spoil it, but it you'll read about it upcoming. So that's a different thing. But yeah, like
pretty complicated. Yeah.
And basically, a stamp has to, like, depending on how complicated it is and how much it changes, that's how much power it requires. Like when you first create it. And it can't create something that was never a possibility. Like from someone from Elantris and like from that world, them becoming an Elantrian instead of just an ordinary person, that's a possibility. And so that could have been like their past and soul could be rewritten as if that happened.
Interesting. Okay. Well, I look forward to reading that. But So my last thing I'll mention about Tress, unless you won't have anything else to mention about it,
You do your thing, and I'll end on
the
mine.
wokeism of this book, which
It's there.
there's
It's
been
there.
there's propaganda, I will say, right? Like woke, that term, the cringe, whatever, but it's just like there is a leftist ideology that's shoved in here unnecessarily. Where the other example is when it happened before.
My only thing is I
Stormlight.
don't. Yeah, that too. I don't know how much of it is others influencing it because, again,
I think it is. Yeah,
I think
I don't know.
I know he does have final say and he could just say no.
Yeah,
But on the other hand, like these projects are not by a one man thing. This is a team of people that make these.
it's just it's the second instance of it, and like the first instance I did, or at least that I know of, it's so in your face and so distracting, and it just makes me roll my eyes so fucking hard. Where I'm like, why is this even in here? It's fucking bullshit. So basically,
I
Tress
do
goes on a
appreciate it
tangent-
doesn't really like
affect
linger
the story
very
at
much.
all. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could be worse. Yeah. Well, I mean,
Well,
we'll
like
see.
there's always
we'll see.
that argument, but yeah.
we'll see in future story.
When in truth, Kaladin is a transgender.
Exactly right. Or
Brandon,
who knows?
I
Calvin
love your
dies.
books. Don't you dare!
Yeah, I
You
know.
shut your whore mouth.
Calvin dies and comes back as a trans woman. Yeah, no. So as she goes on a tangent about how like the soul is supposed to fit in a certain way in your body, or like it's supposed
The
to take
soul
on
takes
a
on
certain shape.
takes on a certain shape.
Yeah. But when you're not that, your body or something, I don't remember the wording. When it doesn't fit what your soul shape is, it can be so uncomfortable, and just it's like the worst in the world. It was essentially trans allegory for like if you're a woman in a man's body, it's gonna kill you.
It also kind of they kind of do something slightly similar in Yumi a little bit because like she is technically a spirit inhabiting his body, and she physically changes it into female for the portion while she's in it. It's not quite as blatant, but it's something I was thinking about.
That I wouldn't even say is like a woke thing. It's like what her soul is the gender that it's supposed to be. Of course, like that to me is like that's right. But like that's to say it's just like
part of me is like part of it kind of upsets me, but the other part of me kind of laughs because it doesn't affect the story at all. It never lingers. It never becomes like
so
the main
why
focus
put
of
it
the story.
in? It's just so it's so patronizing, man.
Well, I feel like it's going to piss off people on both sides because if you don't like it, you're like, why the hell is this in my book? And if you do like it, you're like, why is it not in this book more?
Yeah.
It's always like
so
a passing
dumb.
fucking mention.
And if it's not in there, guess what? Both sides don't care. This is not in there.
Well, that's not necessarily true, but we're not going to bend over for 5%.
Well, though you can never please those people though. But in the instance of Stormlight,
you
it was
can,
like when
historically.
Us Bren have just so many genders. Oh, okay, cool.
Because we weren't shaped by human perceptions.
Yeah. What aspects makes it a different gender? Huh? How is that not male or female? Please tell me.
Functionally, how is it different?
Yeah, this whole separation of gender and sex being not a synonym is cancer.
It's nonsense. But we're going to move on because we're still.
Sorry.
I'm going to finish off talking. That's both of our fault. It's fine.
Yeah.
We went on a tangent there. I think the main thing for this book that allows me to not be bothered by as much by the things you mentioned, even though they do bother me, is that maybe it's just because of where I'm at in my own life, but a woman who was willing to like actually fight for a relationship is a pretty refreshing thing in a fantasy story at this point. Like, because she spends this entire book like fighting for her man and eventually her like kind of her new adventurous life as well. But she doesn't just give up. She doesn't give up the thing that she was fighting for in the first place.
It was a reversal on the gender trope done right.
I agree. Yeah,
which Brandon is really good at doing that sort of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, and I 100% agree. It's like we
I
even
would
talked
say
about
that's
like
done
when
in Skyward though as well.
a little bit.
Yeah.
It's done in a very different way. But like she's like she's the Raphael of her group, basically, like the anger, like I want to fight people kind of person, and that like in Skyward. But like even it's like Brandon doesn't miss almost ever. And so it's significant when he does miss on something. It's like we talk about Dalinar being the evil tyrant turned good guy, and maybe how that was done better than perhaps like Shadow of the Conqueror. We do like that book, like up here, but it could have been done better.
Yeah, of course,
frankly.
yeah.
And then you have someone like Dalinar, who is like the perfect fictional version of that kind of idea.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's been our thoughts on Tress of the Emerald Sea. I would give it a float. It was a nice story. It lifted my heart when I read it. And despite its problems, I really, really enjoyed this book. And for those who... Go ahead.
4 out of... star rating out of 5. But then star rating out of 5 again, but according to the Cosmere.
Okay. Go. You want to do each do like just normal star rating and then switch over, or do both for each?
Well, we'll do normal star rating first.
Okay, normal star rating. Go. Out of 5 or 10. Okay.
4 out of 5, right? It's mostly based off of recommendation. Because I can generally recommend this to people, especially the average audience isn't going to find the flaws that I see, or they're just not going to see them as flaws necessarily.
The average audience thinks Fourth Wing is revolutionary.
Yeah, but even outside of that, like I said, the world building is so good. It's way above. For that, it's a high recommend to people.
World building. I give it probably a 9+ actually. Yeah.
Yeah, it loses that point because it's just those flaws that I mentioned, the world building flaw and the Mary Sue-ish. But besides that, otherwise it's a high recommend to people.
I don't do the out of 5 because it feels inadequate. I do out of 10, and then I break it down even further because I'm an asshole. I give it like an 8.2. It would have been a bit higher, but you did point out some problems that I can't quite ignore. So yeah, as general books, I'd give it like an 8.2. Now, with 5 being average in the Cosmere, or a 2.5 out of a 5, what would you give this in a Cosmere rating?
Yeah, I would say this is a 2 out of 5.
In a Cosmere, yeah.
Yeah, I think it is. To me, it is the worst Cosmere book there is. But it is saved by some of the uniqueness of it. But it is definitely taken down hard because of the issues that I see.
I'm going to say something that's going to piss you off, by the way.
Sure.
It's not my low... quality-wise, maybe it's definitely on the lower end in the Cosmere for some things, storytelling quality-wise. But I enjoyed reading it more than some other books in the Cosmere. Like I have some spicy takes. In fact, I'm going to hint at our next stream that we'll do.
You don't like Mistborn. You're retarded.
No, I don't dislike Mistborn, but I have 2 very hot takes that I'll address right now. I'll say one that's not as hot of a take, and then I'll say the one that was going to piss off the internet collectively.
Okay.
Stormlight is miles better than Mistborn in every conceivable way.
You're wrong in every conceivable way, but continue.
Now that's a hot take. It's not that hot of a take. The real hot take for Cosmere fans, Mistborn Era 2, I like it a lot better than Mistborn Era 1.
I was talking to Grace about that too. She's just like, she got to book 2 and she put it down.
of Era 2?
Yeah, Era 2. She's like, wasn't really into 1. She's like, all right, let me give 2 a chance. She's like, I'm just not feeling it. Which is pretty much what happened with me. But then, again, we both found out that it's super integral to the Cosmere, so we're like, fuck, we gotta read it.
The seventh book in Mistborn and the fourth in Wax and Wane, Lost Metal is critical for the Cosmere going forward, and like how it hints at things and it shows a wide variety of things that are kind of important. And also it's just like with Wax and Wane, I'll admit the quality sometimes slips. It's maybe not as high quality in the writing in some ways as Mistborn Era 1. I just like it better. I like the aesthetic. I like the characters better. I like the kind of the way the world is in Mistborn Era 2 better. It's not quite as desperate. It's a little more like Frontier America, like let's explore the new world and create grand technologies and society kind of thing. It's stuff that I really like and I don't see often in fantasy books. Yeah. But the Lost Metal, the fourth book in Wax and Wane, the final Mistborn book so far, I think it is better than any book written in Cosmere, not just for its aesthetic, not just for my own personal preference.
We'll see. It is an hour. We should probably take this to close.
We should. So upcoming, we are going to have a Mistborn versus Stormlight debate on Battsauce's channel.
Well, if you are listening, join our Discord because we're going to be doing more of these book talks. About, and especially Cosmere too. We're definitely covering a lot more of the Cosmere stuff. So join the Discord if you're interested, and we will even be posting in there, future books that we're going to be reading. So you can, book read, book club or whatever it's called, and you can be more involved in the conversation or be able to read it before we actually talk about it. I mean, not to mention we got some great stuff going on in there along with hey man, I send up
picking out what movies and yeah.
You can affect the actual Iron Sea show because the Iron Sea's Discord, but so check it out.
Yeah, man, it's going to be great. Also, you want to shout out any of your own projects or anything else that's going on your channel? Any videos, or I know your book is coming out soon, rumored.
I have a book coming out tomorrow. No, not book. Sorry, I have a video. I'm sorry, I got distracted because I'm looking for my...
I just said the wrong thing. It's great.
It's like coming out at the beginning of November is what I want to advertise. Join my mailing list. If you want... I don't know, discount. You want a discount for things?
You want his D as in discount? Email
shit. For all my projects, it's in the private chat. If you can share it to the public,
I'll grab it.
For all my projects, you will get a discount in the future. You just got to be a part of this mailing list. I'm not going to spam your mailbox. I'm just going to only when a new project is coming out, like very essential type of things are the only times I'm going to email you. So join that. And I don't know, like you might just get more than just discounts, especially if I, do a campaign or something like that. You might be getting a free item. So
yep. He's gonna spit on a piece of paper and rub it on his arms, and that's what he'll send out. Yeah, no.
But the main thing is Tale of the Dunce Whisperer is releasing in the very beginning of November, so look out for that. It's going to be awesome. It is Harry Potter meets Office Space. So.
And also, his first book ain't bad either, folks. I've been reading through it. It's a really interesting read. It's structured very uniquely, which I'll have to talk to you about at some point. But it's a very good read. It's a very interesting, some very interesting ideas explored at various levels. But yeah, no, absolutely check him out. And now that he's had his say, I'll just do the. And he's gay. He's wrong. This stream was a bad idea, and we're never doing it again. No. Oh, sorry, I couldn't resist. But guys, thank you so much for coming here and enjoying this. I know some of you are going to be catching it tomorrow, but alas, thank you for joining me on The Ultimate Kahuna. You guys know what happens next. 1, 2, 3. Wow!